Hello everyone, nice to meet you. So I have in my hand a collection of letters, like this one, all dusty and fascinating letters that tell the adventure of Annabelle Underwood. In this video, all you have to do is listen and enjoy the story. I also created a cover. You can tell me what you think about it in the comment, and of course about the story too. And one more thing, I prefer to warn you, but English is not my mother tongue, so I promise I will try to improve as quickly as I can, and for the acting too. So now you know everything, should we begin? This story is called Everything But Green. So now I will summarize the first and second part for you, but if you want to listen to them, you can find the link in the description. So, you are in New York, 1911. Annabelle Underwood was only supposed to stop there briefly, just long enough to wait for an expedition to the North Pole, but the funding collapses. And one night, a little girl stepped into her path. Pearl, barely 12, offers a locket and a plea. Find Louise, her older sister who has disappeared without a trace, a textile worker by day and a waitress by night. And then she suddenly vanished. At dawn, Annabelle and Hayden pick up the trail. Doors slam in their face. In the upper floors of a factory bursting with brilliant colors, one worker finally agrees to speak, letting slip the outline of a system that green woman down like grease, while the memory of another recent disappearance lingers in the corridors. In a bar, still closed for the day, the boss confirms the unthinkable. Louise would never have abandoned Pearl. And when the last stop leads them to a single damp, crumbling room, one detail is waiting, pinned in a mirror, the lyrics of Louise's last song. But because in New York some disappearances make no sense, until one day someone dared to listen. That evening, when we returned, Pearl was already waiting for us in my room. She was reading one of the many books I had borrowed from Professor Johnson in preparation for the expedition ahead, if it even happens at all. She was absorbed in a study of the sub-Atlantic lands. I must admit, I was astonished to see a child so young read with such focus, and above all, to understand what she held in her small hands. When she saw us, a broad smile appeared across her face, quickly followed by her stomach's loud complaint. The rest of the evening passed without any surprise or any trouble. Pearl, of course, asked us an endless number of questions about our investigation, but not only that. She was intensely curious, and after 100 questions about history, the weather, the city, photography, cooking, law, and everything in between, she finally returned to her books. Before falling asleep, she clenched the necklace in her right hand, out of habit, no doubt, but also to comfort herself, to feel closer to her sister. If you only knew how much I hope in that moment that we might reunite them, but as you will see, life had chosen a very different fate for them. The next morning, as we made our way to the restaurant, as usual, someone was waiting for us, the boss. He stood at the bottom of the stairs, beside the reception desk, looking utterly miserable, holding his hat in both hands. His face showed discomfort, yet also determination. I called out to him, surprised to see him here, certain that whatever he had to say would cut our breakfast short. He hurried toward us. He tried to speak, but I could tell the words themselves would not come easily. Then, to my surprise, Pearl took his hand and led him to a table. Hayden and I followed. We ordered for the whole table without saying a word. When the waiter disappeared into the kitchens, the boss drew a deep breath and hesitantly began to speak. Thank you. If I've come to find you, it's because yesterday my wife and I learned something that shook us to the core. My sister-in-law paid us an unexpected visit, but not to bring good news. She lived clear across the city. With work, we don't see each other very often, certainly not during the week. Anyway, I'm getting lost in useless details. She came yesterday in a panic because her daughter vanished overnight. My niece is nowhere to be found. She disappeared the same way Louise did. She went to work in the morning, left the factory, and then nothing. It's as if she too simply vanished into thin air in an instant. My sister has been searching for 2 days and no one knows anything. The police can't do much. She's an adult and they think she ran away. But I know my niece. She would never abandon her mother. She had no father anymore. He died long ago and they only have each other. But I'm certain the two cases are connected, that they are linked to disappearance in a city almost at the same time. It can't be a coincidence, can it? Or maybe I'm imagining things, or maybe I'm not. What do you think? Do you think it's possible to find her? Where do you think she might be? The police didn't take us very seriously when we went to them, talking about a runaway, a desire to see the world. I was about to answer when the waiter arrived with our breakfast. I let him serve us and thanked him politely. Once he was out of earshot, I replied to the boss. Thank you for coming to tell me about your niece's disappearance. For now, it's too early to be sure the two cases are connected, or that this is anything more than coincidence. For I must admit, the two disappearances are very similar. I still have a few places to inspect today, but if you agree, I'll meet you at your restaurant late this afternoon, so we can talk at length. I promise I'll do everything I can to help, just so I know. Did your niece also work in a textile factory? And if so, could you give me the address? He answered positively and wrote the address in the notebook I handed him. Then I urged him to start his meal because we had to hurry. If I wanted enough time to do everything I needed to move forward to break this case open. We couldn't afford to waste a minute. Half an hour later, I found myself once again in front of the factory where Louise has worked. I barely had time to knock before the owner flung the door open, already shouting at us, telling us to leave. Without losing my temper, and with all the courtesy I could muster, I simply held out an envelope with Amelia's name written on it. I told him I wanted to invite her to dinner that evening. He laughed in my face. Still, without showing hunger, I made it clear, politely, that he had better give Amelia that letter. Because if she didn't show up at the restaurant that night, I would know he hadn't delivered it, and I would come back day after day to make a nuisance of myself. Amelia wouldn't be able to refuse. I knew that. With a sigh, he snatched the envelope from my hand and slammed the door in our faces. In the early afternoon, we tried to visit the factory where the both niece worked, and I was refused entry. Through the narrow opening of the door, I caught sight of my photograph. It was obvious someone didn't want me poking around in their face. These days, Hayden was with me again. The desire to investigate and solve this mystery was stronger than his fear. We no longer took public transportation to avoid being separated, and we ate most of our meals at the restaurants and the hotel to avoid trouble. He seemed far happier than he has been since we first arrived. We spent the rest of the day quietly reading and having tea. I had stopped by the town office building to obtain various papers on one or several companies that seemed involved in this case, one way or another. When the sun began to sink, the three of us headed for the boss restaurant. No matter how hard I tried, I could never convince her to stay at the hotel. Besides, she didn't have school the next day, so it wasn't as serious if she went to bed late, Hayden told me. Defeated, we arrived around 6 o'clock. The boss greeted us with a slightly stained smile. Grief was written all over his face, worn down by sleepless nights and a full day's work. To my complete surprise, as I stepped into the restaurant, his wife launched herself at me, an embrace, then a hug. I was rather taken aback. I'm not comfortable with that sort of thing, you know it. Hugs, physical contact, it truly isn't my cup of tea, but I could feel she needed it. Perhaps it helped her hold herself together in such a dreadful situation. So, despite my discomfort, I said nothing. It lasted only a few seconds before she stepped back to greet Hayden and Pearl. Then the boss, sister-in-law, shook her hands. Her features drew tight with frustration and exhaustion. The rest of the restaurant fell silent at our arrival, and it was as full as I hoped. Amelia had understood my message perfectly. A large number of her colleagues was there. Leaving the boss family aside for the moment, I began questioning Louis' co-workers one by one that were kind enough to come. Amelia also knew neighbors who worked in other factories, including some at the boss' niece factory. I questioned each of them in turn, conducting, true to habits, a rigorous interrogation. Little by little, things began to become clear in my mind. I was finally starting to understand the thread of this grim story, and especially the connection between the two disappearances, because there was no doubt now. Both young women had vanished for the same reason. The only thing left was to uncover how, why, where, and when. One by one, the women we questioned left, until only we and the boss family remained. When the last woman departed, I asked a few final questions to the boss sister-in-law and his wife, then closed my notebook for the day. Afterward, we went home, having all eaten together. They tried to coax information out of me. But you know me, until I've confirmed everything, until I'm 100% certain of my conclusion, I say nothing. Pearl was already falling asleep in the taxi on the way back. Hayden's had boarded, and I must admit I too was exhausted. Yet, once we reached our room, and after I tucked Pearl into bed, I couldn't sleep. I, who normally sleep so well, falling asleep in seconds, could not find rest, because seeing Pearl like that echoed too closely with my own life, with my own childhood. I don't speak of it often, you know. I hate talking about that chapter of my life. And yet, in that moment, the urge to write, to tell, came over me suddenly. My father died not long after my mother, of illness, I was told. But I believe it was grief that truly carried him away. He could not bear the absence, the death, and my mother's disappearance, especially under the conditions in which she died. Horrible, truly. But before I tell you about that tragic end, perhaps I should tell you about the beginning, about the characters, about my parents. My father was French by birth. He was born in the region of Bern, to be precise, and lived there for most of his life. He came from a small town near Pau. His childhood home was also the home where I grew up, before the tragedy. He taught English, Spanish, and the Béarnais language, logical, in a region near the Spanish border, where many English people come on holidays to enjoy the area thermal water. Those are places where the water is rich in salt and other minerals, said to benefit the body. That is, in fact, how my father met my mother, along the Boulevard des Pyrénées in Pau, a place with a truly magnificent view of the mountains. But before I speak of their love story, let me tell you about my mother. She was from Scotland, born into the local bourgeoisie. She had come to France to accompany her mother, who was very ill, a mother A woman of letter, educated, she spent endless hours in books. She devoured anything she could lay her hands on. Yes, that did not prevent her from being an adventurer. The two of them loved spending entire days in the Pyrenees Mountains, studying flora and fauna. I don't know who spoke first, but apparently they collided. My father carrying a pile of books in his arms, my mother buried in a book she had just brought about the region and its language. So cliché. They were made to understand each other, you would say, and indeed a romance quickly began between them. When my mother has to return to Scotland, they continue writing to each other for months, until my father, summoning all his courage, went to Scotland to ask for her hand. To his surprise, my grandparents opposed to the marriage. Being of noble background, they wanted their daughter to marry someone of the same standing. So cliché again. My mother disagreed. She chose my father and decided to run away with him. And so they settled in my father's family home in France, and my mother trying to become a nurse. My birth came as a surprise to them. They were already rather old and did not expect to have the chance to have a child. And I must say, I had the happiest, most cherished childhood. Whenever we could, we would spend entire days hiking in the mountains, talking about anything and everything. But everything ends, and on my 9th birthday, a fire broke out in the house. I still don't know how it started, but it spread quickly while I was upstairs with my mother. My father hadn't come home yet. Twice a week, he volunteered to teach evening class to town people who wanted to learn one of the languages he spoke. The fire spread so fast, we couldn't get out and escape. Even the bedroom door would no longer open. In a desperate impulse, my mother smashed the window and threw herself with me from the first floor. She died instantly. As for me, her body broke my fall and allowed me to survive. Her body was almost entirely burned, and the fall was therefore fatal to her. In the distance, no one ever believed me. I swear I heard a man's voice, a deep, powerful voice, laughing loudly. But there was no man there, no one. Did I imagine it? Surely. The fire was ruled accidental, a match or a candle. That surprised me, because it happened in broad daylight. No candle should have been lit, and neither of my parents smoked. That was unusual for the time, especially for my father, but he had quit. For my mother, because she couldn't stand the smell. It made her ill. So there was no reason to strike a match. The only time they used one were for the oven, which was off at the time, or for the fireplace, which was off too. I always wonder why. What would have made my mother light that candle, or match that cost her her life? From that day on, my father was only the shadow of himself. He, who had once been so friendly to everyone, barely spoke. He would simply stare into the empty space above my head, as if my mother still stood beside me, as if her ghost continued to follow us. Nothing remained of the house, not a scrap, except, as if by miracle, my mother's armchair. It had been spared by the flames, but what magic? That mystery too remained unsolved. My father became obsessed with rebuilding everything exactly as it had been before she died. And 1 week after the work was finished, he died in his chair, right beside his wife's. 1 year to the day after her death, on my birthday, on my 10th birthday. And as I thought back of all of this, a connection snapped into place in my mind. Pulling out my notebooks again, I understood we have to leave at once, immediately, because another woman was going to be taken again. If My calculations were correct. Another woman was about to disappear, again, forever. I dressed quickly, as silently as possible, so as not to wake Pearl, and knocked on Hayden's door. Half asleep, it took him several minutes to answer. I explained the situation and my intuition, and without a word he dressed as well, and we left. I gave instructions at the front desk for the staff to look after Pearl while we were gone. We jumped into a taxi, waiting outside the hotel, and gave him the address. Surprise crossed the driver's face, but when I begged him to go as fast as possible, he said nothing and drove. The poor man asked him to speed up every 5 seconds, but it was for a good cause. Without knowing it, that man helped us save a life. It took no more than 20 minutes to reach our destination. It wasn't midnight yet when we arrived, just in time. A man was leaving the factory with an enormous sack on his shoulders. Hayden tried to speak, but I clasped my hand over his mouth. The man threw his bundles into the trunk of his car and drove off. Taking Hayden by the arm, I led him back to the taxi I had asked to wait at the bottom of the street. The driver was smoking near his vehicle. Without giving him time to react, I started the car and sped away. He would only have slowed us down. I promised myself in that moment that I would return his vehicle the next day, and I did. Hayden slid into the passenger seat as I tore off. Once I caught up with the other car, I kept a significant distance so as not to be suspected. He didn't seem worried and hasn't noticed us. We drove for a long time. I followed blindly, and although I spent the week studying the city maps, I admit that in the darkness I hesitated more than once about where exactly we were. After a long half hour, he finally stopped his vehicle. I did the same, hundreds of yards back. We were in a remote corner of New York City, near a wasteland. He slipped one of the wooden slats aside and squeezed through the fence. We followed as quickly and quietly as possible. I discovered with surprise the almost professional stealth with which Hayden moved. In the wasteland stood a small cabin, locked with doorless. Only a thin blade of light from the doorway suggested someone was inside. I didn't know whenever he was armed, and in the dark, it was impossible to tell what was happening. So, as usual, I improvised, hoping we wouldn't get ourselves killed. I knocked on the door. Every sound inside stopped instantly. I knocked again and whispered to Hayden to speak. I thought he were a roaming police officer, finding it strange to see a light at this hour, especially in this place. I told him to speak as though he expected to find children playing here, defying every rule. I heard the scrape of a blade against another. No gunshot. We were lucky. Hayden raised his voice, pretending to draw his weapon, imitating the sound with 2 metal pieces I handed him, a trick that has saved me more than once. Silence fell again. Then I heard a door open on the back, and someone running alone. Hayden gave chase, while I stepped inside. A woman lay on a table in the center, asleep and bound. On 2 other tables were shapes, draped in white. I uncovered one, afraid of what I would find beneath. It was a face I know far too well, Louise's. And that's all for today. Thanks again for listening and watching the video right to the end. Please don't hesitate to subscribe and give us a like to this video. See you soon for more adventures with Annabelle Underwood.